What is up, guys? It is a special late-night edition of the Leg Kick. You might be asking, oh, guys, why are you all wearing hats? No, we don't have male pattern baldness. It's a Father's Day edition. We don't have kids. Snap. We don't have kids, but it's okay to call us daddy. Is the Leg Kick podcast.
I'm pretty sure you have an illegitimate son. No?
Okay, we're not doing this.
Like you realize I've been dodging child support payments for years, okay? You really want to bring this up? You really want to bring this up?
The jig is up.
I got the IRS after me. No, jokes on you guys. We actually all just acquired male pattern baldness over the weekend.
Not me. My is luxurious.
Yo, what? Why are we swearing on this Christian podcast?
I think look, my stuff is luxurious.
Your feces is luxurious. Let's see that hair.
Everything about me is luxurious, man. Everything. Everything is luxurious, man.
Let's see it.
Everything.
Go ahead. Let's see that hair, Jeremy.
Everything, man.
Take your damn hat off. I want to see it.
I'm sponsored by Laurier. They don't let me take it off unless I got a product next to me.
You say Laurier or L'Oreal?
No, I don't.
Why does Wilfrid Laurier University sponsor your hair, Jeremy?
Whatever the luxurious. No, you know me. I got nappy hair.
No. You can't just talk over that. You can't just ignore the fact that you said that Wilfrid Laurier sponsors you for your hair. Come on, man.
Hilarious.
This is amateur hour.
And he only pays him in. Wait, what's the bill Laurier's on? 10? He only pays him in 10s.
Let's do the intro.
Sorry. Okay, this is the Leg Kick podcast. I'm your host, Michael Asiffo, alongside the three other Hat Boys on this Father's Day edition of the podcast. Going right to left on my screen, at least, we got the killer, Jeremy Asiffo. I got him. To the bottom, we got Stefano. Do the flex thing now. Do it. Hey!
Listen. I just want to say that I discovered my sole role in this podcast is to be the representative of white guilt. That's why you guys bring me on here every week is so that I can be the self-flagellating white guilt. I got you.
You know what? They say self-awareness is a sign of intelligence. So.
Oh wow! Why thank you, David. I've never been paid such a high compliment.
Right, and I guess we could talk about the gang member himself.
Hat gang.
Yeah. So now that we're all in attendance, it took us a long ass time to get to this podcast. It's not swear. Need I remind you? Clefo O'Dollar once said the A word in a sermon.
That is true.
Hold on, someone said the N word. Someone said the N word.
No, the A word. Okay. Yeah. So before we start,
the A word.
Wait.
No, Clefo O'Dollar.
What a 14-year-old ass. Jeez, I know. Christians don't like to have a lot of fun, but we can't say the word ass anymore.
No, unless you're talking about a donkey.
Jesus, man, what you did? What next? What next? We won't be allowed to have premarital sex. Jeez.
I'm pretty sure I just heard you using the word's name in vain. But moving on. So first on the docket, we got coronavirus sightings. What does that mean? I see somebody put that.
Yeah. So Austin Matthews has coronavirus, or reportedly has coronavirus. Ooh. Yeah. The lead star. Apparently contracted coronavirus. Keep in mind, he is an Arizona native. I'm not saying he went to Arizona. I'm not saying he was in there during that period of time. We are still trying to figure out what happened exactly. And we're even still trying to figure out if it's true, but it's pretty much confirmed that he contracted coronavirus. So, yeah. If you're a Leafs fan and you had the Leafs go into the Stanley Cup this year in the return to play playoffs, you might want to walk that one back a little bit.
Hold on.
I don't know, man. Austin Matthews he's a young, healthy athlete. We're not talking about an octogenarian here, right? Like, in all likelihood, the man's going to have access to the best possible of health care. as he lives in Canada. And, he will be able to have Austin Matthews for this Leaf season. Also, I don't think it's ever on the docket for the Leafs to be winning a Stanley Cup, Mike, so you might want to walk that one back.
That is funny. Yeah, no, I actually kind of agree with Stefano here. I'm just quickly looking something up to make sure that I am not wrong. So you can go, Jeremy.
I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how much Leafs had a chance, anyways, with a new coach and them being the Leafs. So yeah, not too sure about that, but I think Austin Matthews should be there back for the season. I mean, they don't even know when the NHL is supposed to come back. So,
welcome to the Leg Kick, where three black guys aimlessly talk about hockey.
I was going to say, my point was that I don't know if that means that he's not necessarily going to play. First of all, my question is when does the season restart? Because I have no idea about anything.
See, that's the crazy thing. It's like, we're going to return this time, and the NHL has kind of been, They
don't know.
Yeah.
Wait, when is it?
That's why I feel like, should we really be too concerned? I mean, he should be back by the time they figure it out, if they figure it out.
That's insane, because if you think about it, I just read an article to confirm, and I watched a soccer game yesterday with Leicester City playing some team. I think it was Watford. It doesn't matter. But the manager of that team actually had coronavirus in March, and he said that it took him like only a few weeks to recover, and he was in the closed stadium. Obviously, he'd been participating in training sessions. He's in the closed room with his players and stuff. So I think
I'm not saying it's gonna kill him. Like, I'm just saying, like, if you
never know. You never know how it's going to impact someone, right? Like, it's taking the lives of young, healthy adults, and then other people, it's passed them by. Really, not a ton is understood at this point, but
that is a good point. Yeah, you never know, but there is a good possibility he might still feature, especially if we don't know when the season is going to start. But
hopefully,
I don't know anything about hockey.
Hopefully, he gets through it. Like, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's the important part.
Yeah, that's the biggest part. Moving on. By the way, Chelsea, they won today. It was a great game. Oh my god. But all right, we'll let that go. And yeah, the NBA looks like they're going to be caught with their pants down, because apparently they plan to have employees go to and from the facility into Disney. And coronavirus has hit Florida probably the hardest of any United States, any state in the United States. Wow, that's a tongue twister. But yeah, that's all the news.
That's an interesting choice to do the tournament in Florida.
Because it's the only place I'll let them do it.
Yeah, I think Texas is trying to open up as well for sports, but
Vegas let them do it.
Yeah, I guess.
They have a lot of options. I don't know. It just seems like a weird.
Why have they decided to do that?
Yeah, that's a weird choice.
Because they have low IQs. And they're Republicans.
The facilities, and they're probably subsidizing.
They need money. And they care more about money than the safety of their citizens.
Now that I put my thinking cap on.
No, not the state of Florida. I'm talking about the NBA. Why would they let players go to and from?
Not to and from. They let employees who work the
facility. Employees. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that. I think the problem is that you're running into a invasion of rights, right, and an infringement on rights if you force them to stay while working the facility, right? It's weird.
Like the players?
No, not the players. The employees that you are not that you don't pay to go to and from the facility.
Sorry,
I think if the NBA is going to make this work, they're going to have to do a lot of testing, and I believe the UFC, with some of their more recent events, has been a lot better and a lot more meticulous than that original UFC Brasilia card in just having consistent testing, to their credit. And the NBA, there's going to be a lot more personnel, but they're going to have to be on that. They're going to have to be testing people who are going in, people who are going out, the players, the coaches, everybody. The towel boys, the fluffer, everybody.
Yeah, no, I'm watching the Premier League right now and various other soccer leagues, and it's very possible. Like, it's gonna happen. It's just, in fact, there is no other thing. It's just gonna happen, and we have to get comfortable with it.
We can't stop sports from coming back at this point, right? But if we're gonna do it, we should do it responsibly. And I think at this point in time, the silver lining is that sports leagues have a number of models in front of them put forward by countries. They can see what's worked, what hasn't worked. Maybe what Sweden did was a bad idea. Maybe what Japan did was a great idea with a lot of masks. You can really limit the spread of coronavirus. Maybe
what Korea did was a great idea, having their fans be blow-up dolls. That was fantastic.
Yeah, they had some. That was good.
Idea. They got backlash for it, and I say why? That was hilarious.
That was jokes.
How slow was that news week in sports? When the Korean Soccer League is the top headline of the week.
Dude, it was crazy. I was like, who came up with this idea? And he needs a raise. Because it didn't come from a she. It didn't come from a she.
it was just like some guy like, hey, Frank, get this.
And then the club had the nerve to apologize after. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, own it. Yeah, man.
Exactly.
That's what I say. Like, there's too much of this apologetic, like, oh, we're so sorry for the people we offended. It's like, no, who's really offended by this? Who's clutching them pearls? Because whoever's clutching them pearls, just
I'm
be gone.
I'm clutching.
I was all for it. I was like, please do that next week. Like, now they just have, like, stuffed animals in the stands, and it's not as fun.
No. And the soccer stadiums, they have the virtual fans and the virtual crowd. I gotta say, just to some platform, that is the lamest thing I've ever.
It's like when Tesla said you can have. David, we can't hear you.
No, I'm not saying anything.
Oh, you're saying anything. Sorry, I saw your mouth moving.
I'm listening.
Yeah, it's like when Tesla had the engine sounds playing through the speakers of the car. It's like, don't do
that.
Like, there's no need.
Like, come on. I hate that. Like, it's okay. We get it. Like, we know the context in which this is happening. It's fine.
Yeah, we don't need to pretend that we're not in a pandemic. We don't need the plebeian fans booing and jeering at every 15-second break in the action because they didn't take their ADHD medication. Okay.
Yeah. Well, will the NBA do that?
No, the NBA they were considering 2K noises mid-game.
No.
Oh my god, dude! You know what they should have? They should have like those, those really campy like early 2000s sports games where everyone was boxy, but the people in the crowd were like, it was just like 4 different iterations of people. Like there was like 2 different kinds of man and 1 different kind of woman, just with different clothes, and they're really boxy. They should do that. You know what I mean? Just ham it up. Just these like pixelated. Huh?
Do you know what? You know what they should do, really? Remember Tupac and how he came back as a hologram? Imagine they just hologrammed the entire crowd.
Excellent South Park episode. Did you beat him? Yeah. Did you shoot him?
Honestly, like, if
what's the problem?
You tell the difference.
Like, well, what does it matter? And another narrative I hate so much, and I get it, fans can motivate, like, athletes. I get it. But, like, we're talking about professionals who've literally been training in their heads alone their entire lives. You're telling me that because the fans aren't there, like, all of a sudden, like, they need the fans' energy, and like, no, man, like, just
I don't know.
put those kids in the gym and let them ball.
I'll say this: it's different.
I get what you're going for, but I don't know. Like, the bigger the stage, the bigger you perform. I have to admit, like, whenever the lights were big and the lights were bright, I don't know, something just triggered in me. Like, and all that training alone, like, it's like, I don't know, all that training.
Is that what made you break that kid's neck that one time?
All right, okay.
Wait, I want to hear this.
Oh, dude, it was crazy. Let me tell you. Oh my goodness, I got the story. Oh, let me tell you.
You savage.
Yeah. So, okay.
am I going to tell her?
You tell him. You tell him. You tell him.
Jeremy, you can't just drop some knowledge that you permanently crippled someone.
No, he's fine. He's fine now.
Sorry, ended his football career. You ended. Jeremy's a savage out here, ending careers. Jeremy plays for keeps.
To be fair, the kid said he wanted to play again. He said he was going to play again, but like I commend him. But anyway.
Hey, I commend Jeremy, man. Football is not a game. Football is war.
Hilarious. What's the story?
Yeah, that time I don't think it was the crowd. I think it was more so like, I don't really know what it was. I was just angry that.
We gotta hear the story, man.
Okay, tell the story. So.
I don't know where to start. Like, we were beating up on them.
No, okay. Start from this part. Here's the part. So I start from this part.
Okay.
Jeremy was doing camps, but at the same time playing for a club team, and the club team didn't appreciate that he missed a couple games to go to some camps, so they suspended him for a half. Go from there.
Okay, yeah. So they had a problem with me going to the States and trying to get attention from these universities down there. So they did sit me down and bench me for the first series. And as the opposing team was driving down the field, they said, all right, you know what? We can't take this anymore. Jeremy, get in the game. As soon as I got in the game, it's just the way it happened. As soon as I got in the game, they stopped driving down the field. And from there, we dominated them the entire half. And then we had 2 injuries, but their first injury to go was their quarterback. For some reason, he decided to leave the pocket, and like a heat-seeking missile, I drove through him, and the crowd did help.
Dude, I was so hyped.
Hold on. Quick
ball rolled like 10 feet in the air. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. So he tackles this poor soul. Goes up in the air.
Mike, pause for a second. Before you move on, I just want to draw attention to the fact that Jeremy just said, like a heat-seeking missile, I drove through him.
That's what I felt like.
That is one of the most savage things I have ever heard. Okay, now continue your story.
Yeah.
Your story.
So I'm in the crowd, right? And Jeremy, to this point, I think has 7 tackles in 1 quarter. Like, this is I'm watching insanity in my eyes. And he drives through this kid. The ball goes 10 feet in the air. I kid you not, right? A kid from another team picks it up. Jeremy turns to the crowd and does one of these. I
was in the moment, dog.
He didn't even look at the ball. He just does one of these. Everyone's like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Right? And then they pick up the ball, they recover the fumble, and everyone gets off the field. All of a sudden, we just see the kid down on the ground, and the trainers check up on him. And we're like, okay, he's going to get up and whatever. He probably hurt his leg in the series, turned an ankle or whatever. And then it's like 10 minutes. And then 10 minutes turns into 20 minutes. Then 20 turns into 25. And then all of a sudden, Jeremy walks towards us. And I'm like, yo, Jeremy, it's cold. What'd you do to the poor kid? I'm freezing out here, right? And he goes, yeah, he broke his neck. And I was like, oh, my God. You know what I'm saying? And look, I don't want to laugh at tragedy. But
look, it's a terrible day for that kid.
Yeah.
An excellent day in the history of Jeremy. I get where you're coming from, man, because like at the end of the day, football's violence, and like in fighting, you're trying to do to the other people what they're trying to do to you, right? They understand the stakes of the game that they're playing, so it's like, you got to break some necks.
I don't know. That's my question, Jeremy. Do you feel like most footballers go out there to hurt other people?
No, I mean, it wasn't
not even hurt. Injure other footballers.
Injure's worse than hurt.
Yeah.
You know what? It's sad to say, but some players actually do go out there to end. I wouldn't say end guys' careers, but end their ability to play that game. It sucks that's what you got to do. It's not what you have to do, but it sucks that that's what people do. But some people do that. Me personally, I did not try to hurt that guy. I'm saying this for insurance.
No, it was a clean number-to-number tackle. Like, it was definitely a clean tackle. It was just I don't know what happened. Maybe it was the whiplash. Like I don't know.
What happened is he ran into a freight train named Jeremy Asiffo. That's what happened.
When I try to motivate my teammates, I do use verbiage like we're gonna go out there and we're gonna try and decapitate these guys, but it really wasn't my intention to separate his head from his collarbone.
No. You guys hear that? Do you hear that? You know what that is?
Oh, here we go.
Choo choo, mother suckers! It's the Jeremy Asiffo Express, and he's coming to break your neck.
Oh, hey, that was my friggin' nickname at Wittenberg. Choo choo.
Choo choo. That's cute.
And it's funny because it was actually the white guys who came up with it. They're like, "Hey, what's up, Chooch?"
Chooch. You know, I'm not going to tell you what chucho means in Italian.
Chucho? Okay.
Moving along.
But yeah, no, it was tremendous. It was tremendous. He you know what? It was one of the more scariest things, but that's when I knew he was going somewhere because I was like, oh, number to number tackle, and you gave a kid whiplash and damaged him
his neck
severely. You know, to the kid's credit, I think he recovered and he actually did play the next year. It was actually a really incredible story, but yeah, he it didn't go well for him that specific day. So yeah. On that note, UFC.
All right,
guys, can I be candid?
Sure.
With everything going on this weekend, I didn't watch the card.
Oh no!
I let you guys down. I didn't do my homework.
Oh no!
Ooh.
You know what?
We could describe it.
You want you were going to do an ASMR? If we can take a break, I can watch the card and come back and we can keep recording.
Because it's damn near 10 o'clock. I'm tired.
Bro, this is the late night show, okay?
I'm tired. But yeah, okay, so look, UFC Fight Night happened. It was Blaydes versus Volkov. Let's start here.
Oh, great. Now I'm going to have the event spoiled for me.
No, okay. We'll start. Yeah, let's start with Curtis Blaydes, 14 takedowns, because I think that's probably the least loaded question, and we could get to everything else later. Because we got some loaded stuff later that I think is going to cause a bleep storm.
Oh, are you talking about the trainer and the guy?
Yeah, which we'll get to.
Come here, bud.
But we'll talk that later. Curtis Blaydes sets a record 14 takedowns. He went 14 to 25 in his win versus Alexander Volkov. But there was a lot of things I think that we can also talk about with that matchup. But he wins the matchup. Curtis Blaydes is number 3 ranked in the world. Let's start here. Where does Curtis Blaydes fit in this heavyweight division?
Well, he's definitely a contender. The only thing I'll say, for me, I just have one quick, I don't want to say take, but I've been reading, and even Dana White said something about Curtis Blaydes not having an impressive performance last night. Like, what was he watching?
Yeah. Dana White has an odd bias against grapplers.
But but it's one thing to have an odd bias against grapplers, which I don't even know if that's true, because if you look like throughout history, like a lot of his more favorite fighters have actually been grapplers. If you think
grapplers who strike, however.
Not necessarily.
I mean, George St. Pierre was the one for me that I always kind of thought was like he was a striker before he won the championship, and then after he won the championship, he became a grappler, so to speak. Or his offense was more grappling heavy.
When you see a lot of highlights on UFC, it's all striking. You never see like grappling highlights when they're trying to promote it. And I think Dana White's vision has something to do with that.
Yeah, Dana White would like it if it was striking with takedown defense, but to bring it back to Curtis Blaydes, because it seems to me, right, evidently his performance last night was very impressive. And, people, it seems like he's in a position where he's one of the best in the division, can beat everyone not named Francis Ngannou. And that might give some people some pause as for, maybe we've seen his ceiling. But I don't think that's the case. It's the old saying that styles make fights. Maybe he can't beat Francis Ngannou. Maybe for whatever reason he can beat Stipe. Maybe there's something in his style that, his wrestling heavy style where he can defeat Stipe but not Francis. Who knows? What if Francis Ngannou gets defeated by Stipe and then we're looking at a Blaydes Stipe matchup? He could very well be a title holder at some point.
Oh no, definitely. I think it's definitely in his future to be a title holder. He's definitely got the talent. The way he steamrolled a really experienced Volkov yesterday was like really impressive. I thought like the first 3 rounds, in my opinion, weren't even close. I think like Volkov did better in the last 2, but like the first 3 was as close to domination. It was very Khabib-like if you think about it in terms of like his style. He at one point I think he even literally had the guy's legs folded. And like had him sat up against the fence while he was just like leaning on him and trying to like pummel on him. But I think, yeah, I agree with you. Styles make fights. I definitely don't think he should fight Ngannou again because that's just a bad buzz for him. Because yeah.
What is it about Ngannou that gives him? I get it. Ngannou's got like mind blowing power, but why is it that Stipe?
If you shoot on Ngannou, he's gonna.
I can tell you the answer.
Uppercut you. Like if you shoot him, he's gonna strike you.
I'll tell you why. Curtis Blaydes, when he throws his jab, man, so in the first fight that he had against Francis Ngannou, he was actually tagging Francis repeatedly with his jab. The problem is he stays in the pocket after he throws his jab. So those quick sharp counters are there. Stipe was constantly feinting and jabbing and low kicking to draw out Francis's strike. So Francis would swing at air, right? And eventually that made him tire. And then the shots just came a lot easier. And Stipe also hit repeatedly that nice pull right hand counter. Man, against Francis, you have to be defensive. Even Stipe got tagged multiple times.
Yeah.
You have to be on point with your defense and you have to be feinting constantly. You know what I mean?
It's a never ending battle. You gotta keep on giving Francis different looks. I get it.
Yeah.
It's just for whatever reason, like Blaydes, like typically you think, right? Francis's grappling isn't the best, although he's got a couple wins by submission. By the way, he does have a couple. Francis
that's heavyweight for you.
That's
it's weird.
So he leaned on the guy, like, yeah, okay.
No, he's got Kimura win and everything. It's weird. Like, it's actually really weird. His early fights, he's actually beating guys by submissions more times than he's beating them by knockout. It's only until he got to the UFC they started just wailing on people. But anyway,
it's those kind of heavyweight submissions where like if one guy is on top, he's gonna like grab an arm and start wrenching on it, but he doesn't have like a really studied like I'm gonna find the underhook from the bottom and hit a technical stand up until I get to the front headlock, and you know what I mean? It's like it's very like big man grab arm.
I did want to say something about the Blaydes fight though, and that was Volkov. Second, as I said, the last 2 rounds was very impressive, which is why, I don't know, I hear what you're saying about him standing in the pocket. I'd have to go back to the fight to see if he was doing that in this fight, because Volkov was definitely trying to counter-strike. Like, he wasn't leading the dance at all, but it wasn't working. But when the fight started to switch a little bit was when Curtis would go for the takedown, would fail because he was tired, and Volkov, I don't know, for some reason figured out how to not get taken down like the previous 11 times, and then he would be forced to stand up, and then he would have some luck. But yeah, I thought Volkov, for a non-wrestler, did a good job of stopping what, in my opinion, is by far, like, at one point, he pretty much, for wrestling fans, he pretty much speared him. Like, he literally ran across.
Oh, that kind of wrestling.
Yeah,
I thought you meant the real wrestling.
No, not real wrestling. No, I mean fake wrestling, like WWE, Bill Goldberg, wrestling. He literally ran across the stage, like cage, and just like grabbed him, and like, yeah, it was beautiful, man.
I would agree. Like, Volkov definitely showed up in those last 2 rounds, and he handled like the takedown. He handled the grappling of Blaydes like a lot better than he did in the first 3 rounds.
Mm.
But like, just to go back to like the Francis Ngannou things, I was trying to ask Michael earlier, like, why is it that he can't Like, what is it about his wrestling that he doesn't have in his arsenal that Stipe and or I think it's just Stipe that Stipe can use against Francis Ngannou? And it was like, I think what I'm hearing Stefano say is that Curtis Blaydes doesn't have good grappling defense. He just has good grappling offense. I'm trying to understand, like, what is it that makes him valuable? Is he not? Michael was saying he's not technically sound. Like, what is it? Like,
I would say that the setups to his shots for Curtis Blaydes are just a little more obvious, right?
Yeah, I would say that Stipe is a better technician, and I think DC would actually have a lot of success against Francis Ngannou for the same reasons. They're just better technicians than Curtis Blaydes, right? But Curtis Blaydes is a much
stand-up wise, yeah.
Even grappling wise,
absolutely.
I think DC's an Olympian.
Yes, David. There's no dispute there. There's no dispute.
Wait, not for DC. DC's out of this conversation because he's an Olympian.
Stipe in grappling as well is I would say has a technical advantage over his pedigree.
So where does Curtis Blaydes' technique fail?
So Jeremy, what I would say is where Curtis Blaydes' techniques fails is that one on the feet, he's a lot more
flat-footed. Okay.
Is constantly feinting. He's clever. He's feinting his jabs, right? He's making Ngannou miss on counters, right? Whereas Curtis Blaydes is a jab. When I'm going to step in and throw this jab at you, you know it's going to be a jab. So I'm going to be there to be hit, right? Whereas Stipe is constantly making you miss and then coming back in, right?
And plus he's constantly got that right hand that knocks everyone out but Francis for some reason. But
he hurt Francis. I mean, to Stipe's credit and Francis's credit, Francis also has that right hand that knocks everyone out but Stipe. I mean, I rewatched that fight the other day. Stipe got cracked a couple of times, man. Very, very hard. As good as his defense was, which it was phenomenal. Right, he had incredible head movement in that fight. He was avoiding getting cut off phenomenally. He got cracked 2 or 3 times, very hard, and for a lot of people, that's enough against Francis Ngannou. For everybody else in the world, that's enough to end a fight.
Yeah, literally. I mean, look at the multiple examples where it's been like 20 seconds and he lands 1, 2, not even clean shots, and it's like good night. For sure. But,
like the Junior Dos Santos one was the one that always got me, was that Junior Dos Santos got hit by him, and it wasn't clean, and he was like, "Nope, I'm done."
No, man, it was the
that was the ghost. One. That was the ghost of Junior Dos Santos and the ghost of Cain Velasquez. Let's be honest.
The Cain one too was like the Cain one backing away, short uppercut,
like come on.
And Cain was like, "Nope." Like
Cain crumpled. But like again, let's be honest. That was the ghost of Cain Velasquez.
I can hear that.
As much as I want to give credit to Francis, at the same time, that's not prime Cain.
Yeah. You're not gonna get too many arguments from me, but actually, I think if you put him or that Cain against most people in the heavyweight, he would steamroll them anyway. So. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that. I think that partially speaks to the lack of talent at heavyweight as well.
I don't know, man. I think give it time. There's some sneak.
But at that current time, you know.
I'll say this. Boxing, heavyweight boxing has been around for a lot longer than heavyweight MMA, and what we see is there are periods where the heavyweight division in boxing is strong, right? There have been those periods. And same thing with heavyweight MMA back in 06, 07. Pride, man. Pride. But the fact is there's not that many big men on the planet. A lot of the big men that are on the planet in North America choose other sports. And you get most of the athletic heavyweight talent coming from outside of the United States, coming from Brazil, coming from Europe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the crazy part is that, and we've talked about this, so many interconnected things, but as time moves on and our understanding of diet and nutrition gets better, light heavyweights are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So you have Dominic Reyes, who in a previous world might have fought at, what's it called? Heavyweight. Yeah, but now he's 6'4", 6'5", fighting in light heavyweight. Yeah.
Oh,
and I
man,
think that's part of the reason
scary.
why John Jones is having so much trouble with guys is because, John Jones is no longer the biggest guy in the division, right? He's no longer the longest guy in the division, right? He's got guys where, it's not so easy. Like, it's not so easy to just post and retreat and then restart,
Yeah, that's a good point, because if John Jones has one area of his game where, I'm not going to say it's a weakness because he's the best, one of the best fighters in the world, if not the best, but he's not the kind of fighter who's going to be the most comfortable in that traditional boxing range. Whereas now that he's fighting fighters around his height and some people who are specialists in that range, like Reyes, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
okay.
yeah.
That's enough John Jones to talk for a fight card he's not even on. But yeah, no. Do you want to move on to the next fight?
Yeah, I guess we've kind of exhausted Curse Blaydes. The Josh Emmett versus Shane Burgos fight.
What a fight.
Stefano, you missed out. Let me
Fight
just
of the year?
Yeah. I think
you say that every card.
I know us MMA fans have such a recency bias, eh? It's like, no, this was the best fight ever.
I will say though, with this card, with that fight specifically, it served as a reason as to why you both need and don't need the fans. You know what I'm saying? In the sense that, like, you don't need the fans because the impact of some of these shots that you could hear through the television screen was just insane. Like, that Emmett left hand that dropped Burgos in the third.
Yeah, that was crazy. I screamed at the TV.
I'm not sure I've seen anybody throw with as much violent intention as Josh Emmett. He looks like he's trying to take your head off with every single shot. Like,
and the thing is, he doesn't get tired. He doesn't get tired.
No. Like, deep in round 3, he is swinging. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, man, it was amazing. What a fight.
How did Shane Burgos' counter boxing fare? Because I've always seen him as somebody who's been very good at operating with very.
If anything, it was Josh Emmett who was putting on the clinic for counter boxing.
Exactly.
His defense was so good. Like, his defense was so good. Like pull, jab, slip, jab, cross. Like, it was so beautiful to watch.
And that's not to disrespect Shane Burgos, because
I think Josh Emmett was just more crisper.
Man, and do you know what's crazy? I've watched a couple of Shane Burgos fight. I watched the one where I can't remember who he lost to. But
was it Kelvin Cater, right?
Kelvin Cater, yeah. I remember when he lost that one, and I was like, oh, I don't know about this guy, because like he's very, like, hyped up and blah blah blah. But man, I don't want to say, like, he reminds me of a Khabib or a what's his name, a Kobe, who's always in your face.
Wait, hold on. Did you just compare Shane Burgos to Khabib?
Pressure. I'm talking about pressure.
Did I hear that right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the pressure.
I get the point you're trying to make. That pressure, like, he's always making you work.
Yeah, he's not going to wrestle you. I don't mean in terms of, like, he's a wrestler. I mean in terms of he's always applying pressure from minute 1 to the end. And what was crazy about it was that he was losing the counter striking exchanges, but he didn't care. Like, he was just like, okay, I'm going to take your best shot and I'm going to come back. And, like, it was almost like, how they say, like, fighting is kind of like a dance, and, like, one person leads, the other person, like, responds and then leads, and like that. But it was almost like he was like, okay, no, I'm going to lead every time. You can counter strike. That's fine with me. I'm going to still get you.
I will say that inside leg kick for Shane Burgos was working all night.
He twisted Josh Emmett's knee, right?
Yeah, there might be an ACL there or something.
Yeah, he blew his ACL, which is crazy.
There definitely is an ACL in it.
Yeah, Josh Emmett blew his ACL in, like, the first round and still won that.
Maybe even the first 15 seconds.
What a fight, man!
Because when it happened and it looked like it was bothering him, I was like, oh, this might not be good for him.
I think Shane won that first round, but, like, I don't know. Once again, and this can probably lead into our later conversation about, when is it okay for a fighter to quit and when a corner should motivate him. But I don't know what possessed Josh Emmett, because he just came like a man possessed in second and third and just put it on him. And yeah, at first he was like swinging and missing with his counter strikes, and Shane Burgos, who is a good striker, but not as like hard. Like for me, at least, is not as good as Josh Emmett. But man, it did not matter. Like,
I think Josh Emmett's probably the 4th to 5th best 45er in the division.
So
you know, it's just the problem is he's the 4th to 5th best to like 4 guys with big names, right? You got Zabit, you've got Alexander Volkanovski, you got Max Holloway, and then there's Josh Emmett right there. And then Yair's probably even better than – and then Yair, Korean Zombie, and Brian Ortega are there too. You know, Josh Emmett just gets –
What a division. What a division.
What a division, man.
You know what I'm saying? And so
we haven't even mentioned Calvin Cater.
Yeah.
And we haven't even mentioned
Moicano.
Yeah, Moicano. That's
Sure.
right. We haven't even mentioned Dan Ige. We haven't even mentioned
and then Edson Barbosa's moved down to that division too.
Guys, oh my God.
Let's have this conversation.
Is it just me, or is it seeming like 135 to 155 is the sweet spot?
No, we're not doing this.
Is it not the sweet spot? Is it not?
Every week with this argument, man.
Guys.
Human males are naturally like
to me 55 is still the premier division in MMA. But we'll yeah.
Yeah, man. No, man. What a fight, though. But shout out to both of those guys. I want to see another Shane Burgos fight, too.
Yeah. And you know what, Josh Emmett, I really am a fan of his. Like, I thought Michael Johnson gave him all he can handle, and for Josh Emmett to win that one, too, was insane.
Yeah, man. Really impressive. Where does he go next? As you said, that division is so stacked. I'm not even sure did we mention Ortega? Yeah?
Yeah, no, I did mention Ortega. Because I think, honestly, I do think that Emmett would give Ortega, Zombie, he'd give him a hard time. I don't know who wins in that fight, you know what I'm saying?
I don't like Ortega's chances against Josh Emmett. But maybe that's because recency bias. I'm just remembering his last fight against Holloway.
Where he got the breaks being out of him.
Think about it, and once again, we're talking about a guy who wasn't even on the card. But if you think about it, Ortega in a lot of his fights gets beat up and then catches a submission.
Brian Ortega, we didn't even talk about.
No,
Brian
we talked
Ortega.
about. I talked. About
Oh no! I don't think you understand. We didn't even talk about Brian Ortega.
Hilarious. Okay.
Listen. Sorry, go on. I ruined everything.
Hilarious. Okay, so do you want to move on to the...
Is your dog crying?
Yeah, he's whining a little. I think...
Is it breaking your heart?
Yeah, it is. You guys want to see him?
Yeah,
sure.
He's gotten big. Okay, hold on. Guys, this is the mascot of the Leg Kick podcast.
Yes.
It breaks your heart when your dog is crying. I know those ones.
I train with somebody. Well, I don't train with somebody. They're my student who has a dog, and every once in a while she'll bring him. And this dog, let me tell you something. Like, as soon as the dog does something, attention is gone. I can't get her to like do something for 2 minutes. It's insane. Yo, this dog got huge. What happened? And he can't even hear me. But nope, can't hear me still. Whatever. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Did you see that gigantic dog?
Yeah, why is he so big all of a sudden?
Because he's only 17 weeks, man. He's going to be about 120 pounds. So hide your kids, hide your wife. He'll fight in flyweight, all right. It's not.
That's pretty fun.
It's not exactly in the sweet spot of MMA, but
that's pretty
almost.
Fun. Do you guys want to move on to the Austin Hubbard thing, or do you want to talk about the rest of the card?
No, this is probably going to be the loaded part of the podcast because, I have a lot of opinions on this one. Jeremy has a lot of opinions on this one, and I know Stefano would probably care about this one.
Inform me, and I will be opinionated.
Okay, so Austin Hubbard and Max Rohskopf.
I saw it.
Yeah. I think everyone knows what happened, but I'll just give a preamble anyway for those who are living in the cave. So, Austin Hubbard and Max Rohskopf have a tilt. I think it was literally the first fight on the card. I'm not sure, one of the first fight. And Hubbard is winning the second round. I wouldn't say he's destroying Rohskopf, but he's winning the second round. And in between round 2 and 3, Rohskopf wants out. He is repeatedly telling his cornerman Robert Drysdale he wants out. Right? Robert Drysdale repeatedly is telling him, "You've got this." And he's just repeatedly saying he wants out. And finally, Rohskopf tells the ref,
9 times.
Fight.
9 times. 9 times.
9 times, right?
Yeah, told him 9 times he doesn't want to fight. And it took for Rohskopf himself to tell the ref to call it off before they called it off. Okay, I'm going to say this. Now, my initial reaction was that this cornerman deserves every fine that will come his way. But I watched the fight, and I'm struggling. Because the fact of the matter is, and I know, and I've always been on this podcast, and I've said that as a fighter myself, the one thing I didn't want to do is be easy on fighters when things go wrong, right? Or when things don't go their way. And if we have to call it like it is, Max Rohskopf wanted out because the tide was turning and he was exhausted. Right? But at the same time, as a cornerman, you know, if he is repeatedly saying he wants out, it's now a safety issue at that point. You're putting a person who is essentially wounded mentally out to pasture to get hurt in a fight. So I'm struggling. You know what I'm saying?
I just want to say something very quickly, because I actually don't know him super well, but I've met Robert Drysdale a couple of times. I've talked with him before my first MMA fight. He gave me quite a bit of advice, and like he's under. I got my blue belt under his affiliation. So like, bias aside, I know him to be like, he's a very kind human being, you know, always somebody who'll take the time out of his day to, like, you know, he didn't know me from Adam, and before my first MMA fight, he sat there and just for half an hour talked to me about, like, you got to do X, you got to do Y, make sure you secure the first takedown, blah, 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 blah. That being said, yeah, if your fighter's asking, it was irresponsible on his part. And I know it's difficult because coaches and fighters have a unique relationship. And you don't know, maybe your athlete has displayed these kinds of tendencies before, and you think you need to give them that pep talk. You know, we always want to see that moment where, you know, that sports movie moment where the coach gives the inspiring pep talk, and their athlete's able to turn things around and it mentally pumps them. But it's real life. It's not always like that. And it is hard to say, especially when it's not a savage beating. In some cases,
and it wasn't. Right.
But ultimately, if your fighter's asking to quit 9 times and they're adamant about it,
then you gotta
get them out there.
Yeah, I'm on 2 minds about this one personally. On the one hand, I agree with you guys 100%. Fighter safety is important, and your job as a cornerman or a coach is to protect your fighter. So you should definitely, if he says like he can't fight, you should definitely pull him out of the fight. I mean, we've seen this argument happen so many times in terms of when is it okay for a corner to step in for the fighter? Like, do you let him go out on the shield, or do you step in? On the other hand, though, and just to play David's advocate.
That should be a segment. David.
Yeah, imagine.
Yeah.
Why not? I can see. So I've been looking at a couple of social media posts about it, and a lot of people are saying that, you know, this is not a sport for the faint-hearted and blah, 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 blah. I suspect those guys have never fought before in their life.
Exactly.
But my thing is, the rules exist for a reason. And there's a reason why that fight was stopped. That's because as a fighter, it is well within your power as a fighter, to go to the ref and say, I don't want to fight anymore. You can do that, if I'm not mistaken. And that's what he did. So while I understand why people are upset at his coach for not throwing in the towel, clearly, as you guys have said, he's a really experienced coach, and he felt like, this is a guy who can still give some more. If you want a way out, I'm not going to be your way out. You're going to have to take the way out yourself, which is what he did.
And that's the thing. Like, at the end of the day, Rohskopf, look, I'll use an example for me, even though I'm not nearly as experienced as Rohskopf. At Cold Wars, in between rounds 2 and 3, I was groggy. I don't think it was a concussion because I actually went the next day and I was fine. Like, I went to the doctor the next day. But in between rounds 2 and 3, I was groggy. Corey asked me 3 times if I wanted to quit, and I said no every single time. I ended up losing by TKO, right? So, like, in fairness, like, to the Drysdale to Rohskopf, he didn't see, if he saw a sign that Rohskopf was hurt, I'm pretty sure Drysdale would have saw it and did something. This wasn't that. This was, he was exhausted and the fight wasn't going his way, right? So, and I don't want to say it like that to make it seem like Rohskopf's a quitter or he, he doesn't deserve to be in there or anything like that. I'm just saying that the fact is he was tired and he didn't get to, and this is also a guy in Rohskopf who's 5-0 and most of his fights end pretty easily for him, right? This is a guy who had adversity and was tired. Right.
I agree. I agree with most of what you said. Sorry, you want to go, Jeremy, or?
I was just gonna say real quick, like, for a non-fighter, it's hard for me to judge this guy and cast aspersions on him based on his decision. But and also you have to realize if you play other sports, like, it's not like football or basketball where if you're tired or something hurts, you could get a sub. But just being a guy who comes from a culture, from a sport where the culture is you fight through pain and yada, 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 my initial reaction was to call this guy a punk for not stepping to the plate and not, just not competing. But my opinion was a little bit backed up from the initial commentary on it on TSN. Because this guy's career may very well be affected, and he might regret it. They were saying that he might even regret it 20 minutes later because in the midst of the fight, in the heat of the moment, you're going to want to quit. And it was his third fight, his 5th or 4th fight?
Sixth fight. His
6th fight. So he doesn't have too much experience, but this is how you gain experience. Like, you fire. So it was my initial reaction. I'm not gonna dispute, like, the safety conversation, but the other conversation at play was that your coach was trying to motivate you, and was the coach at fault here? I don't think the coach was at fault personally, because as a coach you want to push through that, like, that pain barrier. I don't know if I'm trying to make sense, but
no, I see exactly what you're saying, and I agree. Like, a coach is always going to be biased towards their fighter, right? And they're always going to be biased towards believing in their fighter and believing in their fighter's success.
For sure. And then
I've made that mistake myself, and I also
wanted
I think.
Sorry, David.
I literally wanted to add, if you remember, Anthony Smith in his last fight with Glover Teixeira came out after getting his butt whooped. He said, I would fire my coach if he threw the towel in. So you can imagine.
Right, like, which I don't necessarily agree with, because I do think a large part of the job of the coach is to protect you, as is the referee. 100%. And, obviously fighters are going to have, we're so accustomed with fighters to the mentality of inhuman toughness that it's become the standard, that we forget that some of these guys are human, right? Or all of them are human. Right? At some times you're going to have moments of weakness. At some times you're going to feel human, and I don't think we should judge him necessarily for that or see him as less, especially because we don't have all the info. Like, again, I'm not in the UFC, but my second to last fight, you wouldn't be able to pick up on it from watching it, but at one point when the guy was in my guard, Anthony Joseph, he punched me in the eye, and for I think the last 2 minutes of the fight, I was blind out of one eye, couldn't see a damn thing out of one eye. Now I won, I choked his butt out, and now he's calling me out for a rematch.
So what we say, you gonna get it.
Yeah, he wants me to come to Trinidad to beat his ass again.
Oh, it's a lovely country. I would love to go.
Yo, man, come with me. I love Trinidad. The people are lovely. Their food's delicious. I have a special place in my heart for them. But my main point is, there's a lot until we have full information on exactly what's going on, what went on in the fight, right? Mm-hmm. And what's going on in his life. Maybe we should be a little bit hesitant to pass judgment because, quite frankly, we don't have all the information.
No, I hear that. Like, that's the thing. I don't want to, when I say, why I think he lost or why I think he wanted out, I'm not saying it to be like, oh, this guy is a, like, I'm not calling him names in the book. I'm just,
don't you dare call him a you-know-what.
Huh?
Don't you dare call him a you-know-what. Yeah,
no, but like, I'm saying here it is. Now, again, he did get the call on like a week's notice, and he's coming out there on a week's notice, probably a horrible weight cut, being 6'1", having to fight at 155. I can only imagine how much weight he had to cut in 5 days, right? He's definitely, look, I've heard it best. I don't know, for any anime fans who also watch this podcast, I remember a training partner once saying this to me. Everyone likes to think they're Goku or Naruto under pressure, but sometimes you're a Sakura, if you get that. Sometimes you're a Sakura. Sometimes under pressure, you don't perform well. And that's okay, right? In life, that's okay, right? Yeah. And, that's a weird, obscure reference. But the point I'm trying to make is that I'm not saying I'm not trying to cast judgment on him as a human being. I'm just saying that this is not, like, if you're Drysdale, this is a lot more of a gray situation as a cornerman than it is a Raquel Pennington versus Amanda Nunes, than it is a Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira. This is a lot more gray, right? Where your fighter wants out, right? But they're not necessarily getting, from the outset, they're not necessarily getting damage. But I guess, in a weird way, the person you can look towards, in that situation as an antithesis is Duke Roufus, where Duke Roufus has routinely, called off fights and taken his fighter out of the equation so that that fighter doesn't face judgment and scrutiny because he notices something, right?
The Tony Ferguson, Anthony Pettis one being the main example of that I remember, yeah.
Yeah, so it's weird. Like, it's weird because I don't know if I should cast judgment on Drysdale, but I do think that at some point, you can't, you got to just call it off, and you got to protect your fighter from scrutiny, right? It's just, I'm struggling. Like I said in the first, off the top, I'm struggling with this.
It's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult. It's not as cut and dry as those other situations for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
No.
Okay.
No.
What's next? What's next on the docket, gentlemen?
Dude, I got nothing. No, I'm kidding.
So next on the docket, David's a racist.
Hilarious. No.
Oh yeah, didn't you say on one of the last episodes that you were mad that there were white people in Canada or something like that? Like,
that's what I said?
Yeah, you were like Canada has 50% white people. That's a problem.
No, I don't think that's what I
said. You did. Okay, moving on.
No.
By the way, I started a
majority white country.
We're starting a race war here on okay.
That it still has inherently racist tendencies.
So you're saying white people are inherently racist?
I think white culture is inherently racist.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. Okay, I did not mean to tread over this ground.
What's white culture? Which country is that?
There's no such thing as a general white culture. Oh my
there
god.
is. Trust me, there is.
David,
Movie.
lest I cast some aspersions upon black culture and have people start.
Okay, so let me get this right. There's black culture, but there's no white culture. Got it.
Hold on.
Okay.
There are many black cultures. There are many black cultures.
Yeah, all right. Okay. I wanted to talk
dying.
about the other fights on the card. First of all, starting with the two Canadians, I thought Jillian Robertson for Courtney Casey, I thought she did pretty well. She was wrestling for the most part, pretty much dominated the entire fight, and got the sub with a rear naked choke with literally like 10 seconds left or something like that. It was ridiculous.
25.
Yeah, 25 seconds. But she was like, when kind of like the Blaydes fight, when someone's dominated like the entire fight in terms of the wrestling, the grappling.
Yeah, she was already winning.
Why would you, like, in many cases, why would you go for the last second sub?
Why not? Because she's a Canadian and a gangster.
Exactly.
Hold on, why not go for the last second sub, right?
No, I agree. Why not?
Oh, you're actually like, why not? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
So
You meant genuinely like,
don't.
why? Okay.
Yeah, no, so many times people don't. So I appreciated that. That was pretty cool. Marc-Andre Barreau versus
Barrio.
Sorry. Pardon moi.
Où tu parles français?
Je parle un peu de français, oui.
Oui.
Nous sommes un podcast bilingual.
Baguette.
Calistos de tabernac. All right, go on.
Où est la bibliothèque? No, I'm kidding.
Bibliothèque. What's it called? Barrio, really good fight. Beat the brakes off this other dude. I think Oscar Pichota. Yeah.
He lost. You know what? Pichota, they seem to call him a lot on these kind of like undercard fights, and yeah. So he's an established name, and
Pichota has gotten a tough run of it. I believe he's a talented fighter. I think he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Man, in his last fight before this, I believe that was Oscar Pichota, ran into Rodolfo Vieira. Rodolfo Vieira, world champion black belt. So,
man, give this guy a break, man.
Give him a break.
This was a winnable fight. Because I don't want to talk bad about our fellow Canadian, Canada. I love you so much, despite what Stefano tries to say. Just because I'm critical doesn't mean I hate things, okay?
Hey, dissent is the highest form of patriotism.
Exactly. Thank you. Now we're on the same page. I think against top class middleweights, Barrio might want to switch things up a little bit. I don't know. He kind of looked. I like that he had that go get him style, but yeah, maybe that won't work.
Was this Barrio's debut, UFC debut?
No.
I don't think so.
I think it's the second one.
Second one. Okay, so still relatively fresh as far as UFC goes.
Fresh. But he did.
And Oscar Pichota is a big ask of him in his second UFC fight.
Sure.
I mean, it's also a guy who lost like 3 times in this, in the UFC. But again, it is still a tough fight.
Yeah, he lost 3 times against Rodolfo Vieira.
Yeah.
And other such elite opposition.
Yeah, my only point about Barrio was that he looked like just one of those hockey dudes you don't want to mess with. Like, he looked like a
yeah, but the only point I make is that both guys are on the verge of being cut from the UFC, right? Like, that's...
For sure. And maybe that's why Marc-Andre came out like that, because, like, man, he, like, pedal to the metal. Like, he was ready to go. So that was really cool. Don't really want to talk about the Clay Guida fight. Do you guys want to talk about the Clay Guida fight?
All I want to say is that Clay Guida is the only fighter in the UFC to hit a scorpion kick.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what a scorpion kick is?
I do know it.
Yes, I do.
I believe that Mike knows. David, do you know?
Yes.
I know what it means in soccer.
What does it mean in soccer? Because I'm curious.
It's like when you kick with like both feet like behind you, essentially.
No, okay. So this is just one foot, because in fighting I don't think that'd be practical. But the one foot comes from like behind your back and hits them in the head, and like But Clay Guida did it pinning a guy up against the fence, and he somehow managed to make a scorpion kick look lame.
Guida, man. That's pretty bad. That's pretty badass. But yeah, the other fight I want to talk about.
I remember Pablo's speaking of soccer, Pablo Escobar's team Medellin.
Medellin.
Goalkeeper did it.
Yeah, his name. Oh man,
I think it's yeah.
What's his name? Jim Miller. Oh my goodness. If you've not watched this sub, please go watch it. It is one of the cleanest armbars I have seen in a while. He against Roosevelt Roberts, who dominated Brock Weaver a couple of weeks ago. Jim Miller, who is 37, 38, just dominated.
High level black belt.
Oh man.
Jim Miller he's just one of these guys that you want to say he's washed up and he's old and he's past it, and then he just keeps coming out and beating a fairly high level of opposition, and it's remarkable.
Yeah, he's 3 in a row.
It goes to show you what grappling can do, right? Like, grappling doesn't really go away like striking does, right? I mean, in fairness, Anderson Silva is like literally the exception to the mean, where like I think he could still face pretty good prospects and do well, but when you tend to see a lot more times the grappler do relatively well in his older age, like Damian Maia, even Fabrizio Verdum in his advanced age won the championship. List goes on and on of guys. Cormier too in his 40s. Guys who employ grappling heavy styles win good fights, like win fights against high level opposition, because grappling is a mind thing, and if you can do the tricks to the trade a little more, you tend to do well. And Jim Miller, I think, those examples, right?
Depending on your grappling style, you can slow down the game. Like Damian Maia's game is a very methodical, very, Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah, shouts out Jim Miller, man. He apparently had Lyme disease before, which apparently affected his athleticism. So
Lyme disease it affects everything, man.
Yeah. Sounded pretty serious. So shouts out him.
It's what made Avril Lavigne crazy and go off the mat for a little while. That's a thing. I'm not kidding. That she said so herself. So. Like the point is it's no joke.
Really weird left, man. We're all over the place today. Avril Lavigne, breaking necks. Okay.
Race wars.
Yeah. Race wars.
That should be the name.
I only bring that up because I started something between like high school students.
What's going to be the keyword for this episode?
You know what it should be? Race wars, broken necks, and Lyme disease.
Yes.
Can we make that hats instead? Race wars, hats, and Lyme disease.
No, hats? Who cares about hats? Race wars, Lyme disease, and broken necks. Jeremy's falling asleep, guys.
Jeremy is wide awake, son.
Hilarious. I don't blame you, man.
Well, it is
Bilal Muhammad versus Lyman Good. Bilal Muhammad's good, man. Like, he's really good.
Man,
Lyman Good is not.
Dude, I put like so much money on Bilal Muhammad, and everyone thought I was crazy. And I'm like, no, Lyman Good's gonna get the work here. And no offense to Lyman Good, but
Lyman Good is amazing. Like, man, he once again one of those dudes. I want to know what's in his water, because he is ripped, and he looks like he hits like with crazy bad intentions. But what's it called? Yeah, Bilal Muhammad did a really good job of sticking moving. 2 rounds to 3. I thought it was pretty good. And I think that's all I want to talk about, because unless you want to talk about the Raquel Pennington fight.
Oh, no, just good bounce back win.
Sure. Win. Shouts out Raquel Pennington. I'm always in favor of people who recover from horrific almost life-ending injuries. That's always cool.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, have you noticed how many women MMA fighters have that story? Like, I was in a terrible accident, and then, like, Jessica I have the same one.
Dude, like, it makes me sick talking about Priscilla Cachoeira's, life getting to the UFC. But, like, she became a fighter, and her story is rough. Like, extremely rough.
I gotta look it up.
So I think hardships make good fighters in a weird way.
Yeah, I think that's a truism.
Yeah.
Mike, didn't you have some crazy thing in your Instagram thing that comments or something that we got to get into?
Oh my God! Do we have to get into it?
Like you started a race war, you pitted Aunt Jemima against Uncle Ben or something like that. I don't know.
No, that's another thing, and I don't even want to.
Oh my God!
I've been basically playing racism for the last 5 days.
If you're too exhausted, I can go into my struggles that I just had.
No, okay. I'll talk a little about it. Basically, what happened is that like somebody I know, a friend of mine, an acquaintance of mine, found blackface in our yearbook from high school. And high school for me was a long time ago. And the point they were trying to make was you can't, there was a lot of, you ever heard the idea of performance activism where you post on Instagram and Twitter about how you want change, but you know what? It's always somebody else and not you and your community.
Slacktivism.
Right? Yeah, right. We don't have to worry about anything in Woodbridge because Woodbridge isn't racist, kind of thing. And right. So he posted a blackface photo, and honestly, to the credit of the person who had the blackface, they came out, they apologized, and they said a lot of poignant and well said points to the point where look, it was a long time ago. I'm willing to forgive, and I'm not trying to say, hey, they should be fired, but he was met with a lot of criticism for saying, hey, this is a problem here too, and showing that picture, to which I defended him. And I don't know if I'm the person who sparked it off or if there was other people who sparked it off, but now a lot of people are exposing names. They're talking about their experiences, and everyone's upset at everyone. So,
look, I would say we have all done some very stupid things in high school. I'm sure all three of us have done some things that we regret, things that if they got out, we would probably be in a little bit of trouble. I know I have done some awful things in high school that I am not proud of. And man, you're a kid in high school. You're a kid who's just I think doxing someone in high school is probably, for something you did in high school, is probably not a good idea, especially if they're, someone who is a decent human being, an upstanding citizen, yada yada yada. Let's leave the high school things out of this,
But at the same time,
here's my thing. I think if we're going to dox, I actually, ironically, 100% agree with Stefano here.
Yeah.
Your brain's not even formulated. It's not even done cooking when you're in high school. That's way into university, and that's even debatable. Probably past university, really, or if you're lucky to go anyway. Deep in 25, 27 age. Anyway, my thing is, if you're going to dox that kid, we have to dox Justin Trudeau first. So let's start there. We can dox the Prime Minister and then go down the list.
Yeah. And there's some things too where it's was this done out of malice, trying to victimize people, or was it just ignorance? The Justin Trudeau thing, to me, it kind of seems I don't agree with it. I don't think it clearly hurt and offended some people, and he apologized for it, and that should be the end of the conversation, because he's not trying to victimize people. It seemed probably to him what was a harmless gesture at the time, which now we know is, it's not acceptable. You can't go around wearing blackface. Okay, it's not cool.
It's really funny.
Can we not do blackface? Can I maybe do?
When I was in high school, people were definitely still in that mood. We were still in the gray area of is it okay? Is it not okay? So this is a relatively new trend of oh yeah, no, it's obviously not okay to be black.
Dude, in high school,
Halloween,
in high school, people were still using openly homophobic slurs as well. I wanted to say one hilarious thing. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want them to get in trouble, but a certain friend or relative of mine went blackface for Halloween, but he was in the second grade. This was brilliant. He was in grade 2. He was 7 years old, and he went in blackface. And when people asked him like, "Oh, what are you supposed to be?" And he's like, they're like, "Why are you in blackface?" He's like, "I'm a surgeon." What? Black people can't be surgeons? Like,
wow. In grade 2?
In grade 2, he did that.
Man, he must have some really well trained racist parents. So good for him.
He
was just making a statement. But go on.
No, but like the point I was trying to make too when this whole thing came out was, look, we can't do this. Hey, racism only happens in America, and then go, oh, racism only happens in Montreal, and then we can't keep deferring where racism happens to avoid blame. That was the point I was trying to make, and then other people I think took that, and it sparked some good conversation, right? Where I think you're going to see a lot of change in the Woodbridge area or the York Region area, but I think. Yeah, I think so. I really do. But
David, the Black Lives Matter protests reached Vaughan.
Yeah.
Well, I know they did, but
they spray painted a statue of Trudeau Sr.
Well, that's ironic considering he introduced the Multiculturalism Act, which
and decriminalized and made homosexuality legal. My boy. Like human rights. Come on.
No. But like that's the point. The point I'm trying to make is that I think it has sparked some conversation, and that's good. But at the same time, I think putting names out there is for things they did in high school. I think it's a little much.
All I have to say is that if you guys are actually that heated and you get an address and you're gonna pull up, just make sure you film it. Please film it because I want to watch that. That's it.
Hey, I want
to see a fist fight. That's it.
The other thing is now people who were called out are now looking for addresses of the people that called them out, and it's getting ugly. It's getting ugly.
Just make sure you take pictures and videos, please. That's it.
Forward
them to me at blackkick@gmail.com.
Since blackface is no longer allowed, can the three of you go in whiteface for one of the podcasts?
I mean, the Wayans did the White Chicks, which I thought was probably one of the biggest steps back for black people in the last 100 years. But
wait, who did the White Chicks?
The movie.
The Wayne brothers.
The Wayne brothers. Oh, dude, that was just an awful movie.
That was a terrible movie, and I don't get why people find that movie funny.
Because
it's not. It's dated garbage.
So bad. You want to know why? I'll tell you why. It's because it's white people's ability to look back and be like, hey, you remember blackface and how blackface is wrong? Well, what about the Wayne brothers and White Chicks, right?
Man, shout out to them. N-words getting money, but that was an awful movie. That was an awful movie.
Yeah,
make your money though. Make your money. All right, we gotta wrap this up.
It made what's that song? It made that song famous. The one. It's like Making My Way Downtown. What's that song called?
Walking Fast.
Yeah.
Something. And I Need You.
Yeah.
One of the white people anthems. I know.
Yeah.
See, I'm just here for white.
Alanis Morissette song?
No, it was. How'd it go?
Alanis Morissette.
Making My Way Downtown. Walking. Sorry?
We're getting really deep here. This is not on
Okay. Let me go to the Ask Question segment.
Very quickly, before you do ask questions, I just wanted to say, full disclosure to, I told Mike this, but I actually had some jollof rice the other day.
Nice. How did it go?
You know what, man? It was actually really good. I liked it. Jollof rice. I had some cow's foot with the spinach and stuff, and it was really good. But I'll tell you one thing, and it's good. It's a great restaurant. Shout out to I don't know if I should say their name, but shout out to that.
Don't say their name.
No free promo.
Not sponsored by Gatorade. Yeah, but I'll say one thing: jollof rice, Italian risotto.
You are on.
Get out of here.
Track.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Wait till you have my mom's red pepper risotto. Wait till you have her.
Any promotion that will be having Stefano at their fights, please drug test him for any recreational drug he might be doing.
Bro, listen, you're talking about.
With risotto.
Listen, bro. Listen, you haven't had my mom's risotto. Italians, we taught the world.
The way you describe her risotto, it sounds like bootleg jollof rice anyway. So
Huh? It really did.
Yeah,
but it's not like
no, I'll tell you what. I guess. Oh man, no, I can't say it.
It's not like Stefano could say he didn't like the jollof rice.
I love the jollof rice.
We're in a hot box time in society. If he said it, his DMs
There'll be a lot of pressure on his neck. I feel you.
Listen, I'm a connoisseur of many different types of food. Okay, I love food. I'll just say that. Jollof. You can't blame me for loving my own country's food a little more. But Mike, let's get into those questions, okay?
All right. I got a good one. Good Father's Day themed question for everybody. If
Who's your daddy?
Huh?
Who's your daddy? Was that the question?
Well, there's a lot of women who will say, no, I'm kidding. No, but okay, in all seriousness. So here's a good question for people. If my father hasn't watched MMA, what's one fight that I could sit my dad down for Father's Day to watch to get him into MMA?
Great question. Who wants to lead?
It depends on what kind of dad. Well, man, that was a lame answer. Sorry, somebody else go.
Yeah, David, take a seat. I'm going to have to go with one of my. Ooh, yeah, this is tough because I'm a big fan of George St. Pierre, so I have a George St. Pierre bias. But obviously, you want a fight that's going to kind of, captivate the dad's attention. Like, you don't want something that's going to look sloppy, but you don't want something that's going to bore a casual fan. And it's got to be something high stakes, right? Because casual fans, they like something on the line other than the fight itself. You know what I mean? I'm probably going to say Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald 2, just because of what an epic back and forth fight that was. There was emotion. There was that epic moment at the end of the third where they're staring at each other, and it was just a battle of wills, a battle of beautiful technique, striking technique, and a battle of wills where, in the end, Robbie Lawler just persevered. I might even go back and show him some of the old Pride events, Pride Lightweight Grand Prix.
Mm-hmm.
What about you fools?
Let's go with David.
Yeah, for me, that's I think you actually nailed the explanation in terms of, the kind of fight I would want to show. So I wouldn't want to show a complete domination. I wouldn't want to show like a 20-second fight, obviously. I wouldn't want to show a Clay Guida versus Diego Sanchez because just
sloppy.
No. Yeah, just no. But I would want to show something with high stakes, lots of skill, super competitive, and the two ones that come to mind, maybe my bias being Nigerian, Israel Adesanya versus Kelvin Gastelum.
Great choice.
Colby Covington versus Kamaru Usman. I think like those are like the two fights in recent memory where I've been like, wow, like I've seen something different here. Like, yeah. So.
Hey, how about Frankie Edgar Gray Maynard?
Yeah, that's a good one. And the thing about that one too is it had grappling, right? And like that's the thing, you want to show grappling as well, I think, in my opinion, because I think that's the biggest hurdle for a lot of people making the transition from, like, let's say a boxing to MMA is they just don't like grappling, or not necessarily don't like it, but they don't have that same reverence that, let's say, your BJJ black belt does, or so I think that's the one too as well. But anyway, sorry, go ahead, David.
Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know, because a lot of once you get into MMA, you want to see the best kind of dominate. And like that's the fighters that I've gravitated towards, like Anderson Silva. I really wouldn't know. Maybe a good fight that I really enjoyed that was like a really good kind of test of wills, like Stefano said, would probably be Joanna versus Wei Lee. And that's only
great fight.
Great.
Only because it's like the most recent one I could think of. I mean, maybe there's more that were like that have been in the past, but that's the one that I really enjoy watching. I think a casual fan, or maybe somebody who just wants to see a good fight, would probably enjoy too.
Okay, guys, we're going kind of long, but can I just say, I personally think that in the last 10 years, MMA has gotten better. And
yes.
Oh my God.
In the last years, some of the matchmaking has been ridiculous. Like, we've seen some of the best fights like we could have only dreamed of. So shout out to UFC.
We're spoiled. I agree.
Yeah. For real.
Like, as much as Joe Silva is getting his name dragged through the mud, he did some good things.
Yeah. Well,
Mike, you got an answer for this one?
You guys took a lot of mine, but like I think the one that got me into it was Forrest Griffin versus Stephan Bonner. And
Classic.
And you know, it's a like I think the thing about it is it's a little slower pace than like nowadays, you know what I'm saying? And the guys do get tired by like 2 minutes into the second round. But I think if you want test of wills, I think if you want that crowd coming in and just the finish too, that ending where Dana White comes into the cage and he gets the mic and he's like, you know what, we're gonna give both guys a contract. It's just one of those fairy tale endings, and you understand why after, especially considering the fact that Ultimate Fighter season 1, I went back and watched it. That's very good television. Like extremely good television. So I think that's one that I would like to show my dad if I wanted him to get to MMA. But I think one that for me I think would be the one where it's like this is a weird off the board one, but I would really definitely like to show my dad this specific fight. Does anyone remember Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Tyron Woodley? The first one.
What do you want to show him that fight?
The reason why I want to show him that fight specifically is because that's what encompasses MMA in general, where you have two different styles clash, and I think that's the point, right? And I think that
David's shaking his head. The first one was. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mike. Go on. I heard you stop talking.
No. I was gonna say just like that first fight was also a great fight. You know what I'm saying? And
David was shaking his head. The first, a lot of people, the memory of the second fight is kind of marred by the first memory of the first fight is marred by the memory of the second one. But the first one was a phenomenal fight.
Yeah, I'd have to go back. I can't even remember.
Yeah, no, it was really good. So I think
it was kind of low action. It was a good fight for like purists, but in terms of if I wanted to show a casual fight, I don't know if that's like the first one.
The first one.
Hey guys.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, do you know what, if I was trying to get my dad into MMA, do you know what I wouldn't show him?
What?
And as much as I'm a big fan of this and a huge fan of Bas Rutten and, Minoru Suzuki and all those fighters.
Oh, I love Suzuki. Dude, I love his theme song every time he comes out.
Yeah, I love Suzuki. I love Funaki as well, but I would not show my dad anything from Pancrase. Guys, if you're trying to get your dad into MMA, don't show them Pancrase, and I'll tell you why. It's everything a casual would hate. Weird, obscure rules that make no sense. Oily, sweaty men wearing Speedos and high leather boots. Not a fan of that. Slap fighting. Yeah, no punches to the head. They're slapping each other. Sloppy grappling? Yeah, there's plenty of that. Sloppy grappling with no punches? Oh, even a bit of that. These guys would take mount and just stay there and breathe heavily with a quiet Japanese audience.
That's classic like pioneer. Like how many pioneers came from that organization?
Oh, dude, I love it. I love Pancrase.
Minoru Suzuki in particular doesn't get enough love for what he's done for the sport. Like just in wrestling and in MMA.
He's a pioneer. Mind you, all I'm saying is I was watching, I think it was Suzuki versus Shamrock, I think, in a Tim Hortons. And I'm just sitting there and I'm watching it on my laptop. And in the back of my head, they're both sitting in turtle position, covered in sweat, wearing Speedos. I'm seeing their ass crack and like these knee-high leather boots, and they're just heavily breathing like. And I'm like, man, if anyone walks behind me right now and looks at my screen, they're gonna think I'm watching some fetish wrestling.
Yo, was it on this pod where we were talking about MMA being super homoerotic, and you guys were like, no.
No, I agreed, but like I just thought it was kind of weird to bring it up.
Oh no, it is. No.
Pancrase is not homoerotic. It's just straight up gay porn.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I got a good idea. The two Henderson versus Shogun fights too is one that you can definitely show your dad.
Sure.
Yeah.
Classic.
Okay,
yeah.
Jeremy looks like he's gonna pass out. So
why do you guys keep saying that? This is just my face.
This is Jeremy.
But man, literally 2 minutes ago, you were like,
Jeremy's mouth is open,
Like-
drool's coming down the side of his mouth, and he's like,
yeah,
guys,
man.
I don't know what to say. I look like I'm
This
tired.
is not
Okay?
true.
I'm fully
Every
awake.
5 minutes, this guy's like pouring water in
It's
his
the lighting. It's just the
Guys,
lighting.
I'm the picture of wakefulness. I don't know what you're talking about. I had 3 Adderalls and a coffee before this. Okay.
hilarious.
Hey, guys? Okay, because Jeremy brought up Anderson Silva, and I think that actually would be a good foray into MMA because it's
Just
not
show
exactly.
whooping everybody's ass.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it's like you show how beautiful crisp technique can be in its execution, how this man looks like he's moving through the matrix. Because I remember for me, what got me into MMA, it was just the dominance of George St. Pierre, this quiet, humble Canadian. He was from the same country as me. He wasn't from like a wrestling background or anything, and he was just dominant over all these guys that had all of these advantages over him, and I feel like Anderson Silva did the same for a lot of people as well.
Dude, he looked like the kind of guy who works out just like a little bit, and he would just, dude, man, that first fight with Chris Lieben, and he just knocked Chris Lieben, because at that point Chris Lieben was Iron Chin Chris Lieben, right? At that point, and he knocked him out in a minute, and I was like, oh my god,
that was scary.
I think he hit him with like 20 unanswered blows. Anyway, sorry. No.
Next question.
Guys, we gotta wrap this up.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah. All right, Stefano.
Wait, do you have any questions? Any more questions? No.
No, that's it. I'm good. Stefano, threaten children. Come on, go ahead.
Threaten children. Jesus.
Can I just say, Jeremy has been doing the threatening for the past couple of pods, and he's been doing a piss poor job. So we need that threatening vibe.
Okay, here's what I'll do. I'm gonna do my threat as an impression of Jeremy.
Oh, geez.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes, ready for the worst impression of life.
Actually, before you came on, they rated my impression of you 6 out of 10. So maybe not the worst.
Good, but not
to work.
Okay.
Stop
All right.
whipping out at the end of the podcast.
Should I get into blackface before I do this impression?
Oh, no.
Okay, all right. Are we ready? Guys, I don't know if you heard earlier. I may look like I'm half asleep, and like every little movement I make is 2 miles an hour. I may look like I have narcolepsy, and I'm wearing a Tilly hat. But don't let my calm disposition fool you. I once broke a guy's neck. So, listen up. Hit that like button. Subscribe. Tell your friends about the podcast. And maybe I won't come over there and break your neck, They used to call me Choo Choo for a reason, and it's not because I like bubble gum. It's because I hit like a freight train.
That was good.
Now I'm gonna pass it off to my brother.
You did a good job if you're trying to suck.
Fighting words.
By the way, I've instituted something where if we get 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to set up the MMA match between Jeremy and Stefano for the Light Kick Championship.
Please, after this pod, tell Stefano how you're training Jeremy, and I want to see if he has the same reaction as I do.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, listen. I was going to say if we get to 1,000 subscribers, one of us will call our ex live on air.
Oh, I'm so down. I'm
all right.
So down.
If it's me, expect a lot of swearing and vulgar words and.
Wow, what'd you do to that girl?
I'll tell you off air.
All right, guys.
Mike, to play us out. What does that mean?
So,
take us home.
It's playing up the pool house.
All right. All right.
Right. In this world that is damn near 11 o'clock, remember that tonight you've got three things. You've got life, you got family, and you got this podcast. I really thought you were going to do the middle finger. I really did.
I thought about it.
Oh, my Lord. Good night, everybody.
All right. Peace out, guys.
I love how you said good night like we're live, but whatever.
Really?